So please start.
Yep. Okay. So let me welcome our experts. The topic is both enlightening as well as depressing. This is post-COVID devastation, which is still going on. How do we make the economy go up? And I'm very fortunate to have highly enlightened colleagues, and we will start discussing the way things can go. How I propose, I have given three questions, three set of things. One is economic, second is human, third is financial. And in the beginning, I may only talk 2 minutes in terms of numbers which we should know. Now, generally, COVID, we always say is like a World War III. Now, any world war has got so much of devastation, so much of the thing, and something very big happening. COVID is one thing where nothing big is happening, and still it is devastating. The numbers are so deafening that even if you see India or the world, suppose if you see India, in the last 4 months, 4,500 people have died. In normal case, 27,000 people die every day. In normal, that is a normal thing because every day about 78,000 people are born, 25,000 die. Balance are, continuing to keep the legacy of an Indian on. Same thing around the world. The numbers are very, very high. The number of deaths are very, very low. Not that we want more deaths because of COVID, but the fear it has created, the type of economic disaster which it has done, the type of way people are projecting are more frightening than the real thing which are happening. But we as people who want to develop, who want to grow, who want to make, for us that is incidental. Let the COVID be whatever it is, but our duty is to see how human race can come up, how we Indians can go to a different dimension, how we can take it to a multiple fold. There were plans, there were things which are not good for India, economic downfall. And again, most of us were planning how to make the economy go up. Now it has gone 10 steps lower from all angles, unfortunately. Even though, as I said, on the COVID angle, it has not done. We always say in democracy, majority wins. Here is something which is not even 0.2% in terms of whatever it has done. But devastation it has done is 200%. So that being the case, our work is going to be very, very tough. But we are all people who can do. So let me start with our senior most colleague, Suneet, beginning. He is an expert from various aspects. He has been in banks, he has been in private sector, he has been in advisory committee of government, advisory committees of associations, and whatnot. He himself is an institution, and he has got anybody whom I say, oh, Suneet, I know very well. That's first thing which I come to know. And Suneet is somebody who is an enlightened speaker. His approach, of course, approach of all of us are on the same level. His approach is not one of criticism. This is not there, that is not there, and so on and so forth. He always thinks what way we can go forward and what way this. So my first thing for starting is how can the economy come into some level and how we sit that we all can take things to a different dimension. Mr. Suneet ji.
Yeah, now the audio works. So
Yeah.
thanks, Sekhar, for the flattering description. But here are my brief and quick comments that I would make is, yes, you are absolutely right that I think we have made this into a mountain out of a molehill, as it seems to be today. Having said that, I think this is also true that had we not done the lockdown, probably we would have seen something like what. But here are my brief and quick comments. Way back in 1918, we had 30 lakh
you are absolutely
at that point
right
in time.
that I
So
think
we have made
that was a
possibility.
mountain out of a molehill.
Whether we needed a lockdown of this kind or
today.
this length.
Having said that, I think this was also true that had we not
which I don't want to
done
focus
the
on.
Lockdown,
What
probably
this has
we would have
created
seen
is
something like what.
But
we
here
have seen
are
in
my
crisis.
brief
and quick
Way
comments.
back in
Created
1918,
economic crisis.
we
and
had
yes,
30 lakh around
you are
at that
absolutely
point
right
in time.
that I
So
think we
number
have
one,
now that was a possibility. Mountain out of a
economy.
molehill. Whether we needed a lockdown of this kind or this length. Having said
But at
that,
the
I
same
think this
time,
was
also
also true that had we
because in
not,
India,
which I don't
as
want to
we
done
all
the locked down. What this has created is something like what. But here are my brief and quick comments. In 1980, we had yes, you are absolutely right. So number one, that was a possibility for the economy. Whether we needed a lockdown of this kind or this length. Having said that, I think this was also a solution for India. I don't want to.
If we look at it, the export markets are going to be impacted because all economies around the world are going to become inward looking. And so, for those companies or those organizations, wherever we want to grow by exports, it will be a little difficult because each of the economy, whether it's US, UK, Europe, or whatever, they will all start getting a bit protectionist. And these trade agreements will be all negotiated. They will become more foreign policy oriented thing rather than the free trade thing that we have. I reckon this will stay for a couple of more years before it all normalizes. So I think India will have to fall on its own markets, and Indian organizations will have to fall on its own markets is the first thing for growth. Now, India has a lot of capability. It has a big market. And we should therefore focus on all the things that can. The agriculture is definitely one of those. The government is talking about MSMEs because that's the next big block. See, if you look at the key job creators in the Indian situation, it is agriculture. Then you have construction, you have MSMEs. So if you look at these three blocks, agri, something is being done. I hope it works. I mean, time will tell in terms of how it is implemented. The second, because it will put more money in the hands of the farmer, therefore create purchasing power. The second part that has to be looked at is MSME. And as our minister has already said, there are almost about 5 lakh crores of dues to MSME. Forget about all the credit flow, etc., that we're talking. The fact is that any large company, when they have a payment, shall we say, they have a liquidity squeeze, what they do is they delay payments to MSMEs, who are their vendors. And I think we have to make a movement in the Indian situation to ensure that MSMEs are paid within, let's say 45 days. We have to bring in a national movement on that score. Because once that liquidity crisis is met and their order payments are released, if against 5 lakh, even let's say 4 lakhs is not disputed, make the payment and let them have liquidity. But that will create jobs. And the second thing is that about 2 lakh crores or 1.5 or 2 lakh crores are payments to large corporate sectors from various arms of the government. So I think we have to figure a way out to release all these things and government, and this will create the liquidity flow that has happened. There are still some sectors of the economy which will take a long time to, let's say airlines, or let's say tourism. I mean, we have to recognize that there will be a challenge, and therefore we should develop a different strategy for each of those segments over a period of time. Even travel, domestic tourist travel. I saw Oberoi saying today that they will focus on domestic tourist travel. But domestic tourism also, I think, is a good 6 months to a 1 year away. So we have a challenge. And I think we need to find a very sector-specific solution for those things. Auto, a lot of economy in auto ancillary in India has been based on exports. So that will not happen. So we will have to depend on our own internal thing. And we will have to think of how to shift some of our engineering industries' excess capacity to other areas. But the big thing which the government has not yet announced, and I hope they do something, which is all of these economies around the world and in India, we will have to launch something like a Marshall Plan, a Keynesian plan. Take up a lot of irrigation works, this river interlinking plan, a lot of infrastructure work, common requirements that are there in the Indian economy. Government will have to give out those contracts they will be fulfilled, and then it will create demand for cement, steel, labor, everything. So I think that's what I want to look at one level. But one last bit, and I think then I am complete, is I see that in the last 5 years, one sector has consumed over 3 lakh crores, and that is banking sector, because capital had to be strengthened. Now the banking sector is having this NPA and stress part of the problem. One part of it is structural, because government is the owner, and in a way government is the regulator indirectly. I think there is a confusion that is happening, and there is no need for government to own banks, save and except maybe just one SBI they can keep. The rest can be all private sector. So we have to think of how government can get out of banking gradually, maybe. But once they do that, I think their need to keep contributing to capital and the structural reform that banking sector needs has to be thought through, because Indian government can't afford to put in another 3 to 5 lakh crores in the next 5 years. They would much rather, it should be much rather put into developmental expenditure. So I think this is my set of things that we ought to be looking at. I'm happy to hear others.
Yeah. Thank you, Suneet. And I'm sure it is something which is enlightening to hear on various fronts. Now, let me go to our friend, Mr. Kannan. Now, Kannan, as you all may know, he is corporate head of corporate monitoring person from Hinduja. But he is a well-enlightened public figure, so to say. I don't know, per day he addresses how many meetings on a normal day. And I'm sure for him, webinar of this type must be going on in lots. If you see his Facebook, he has been with everybody and anybody. And and he's also, he has been in a lot of large companies like Tata's and many others. And he's also been with CII, FIPPI, and is in his own rights. And I'm sure he has a lot of things to tell. He's also part of Charter of Conversation, and he's a financial wizard in his own right. Kannan, maybe from your side, how you would like to enlighten from a national growth point of view. He is representing more his personal way on how India can grow, how world can grow, a little on Hindi. Kannan. Kannan, we are not able to hear.
Mute.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Yeah, good evening to all of you. Dr. Sekhar, for inviting me to be part of the panel. I would like to thank you. So coming to this crisis, it all started with health crisis. It got converted into financial one. Now it has become an economic one. And slowly it is developing into a social crisis. So this type of crisis we have never seen in the modern history so far. This is new to all of us, to all the governments, and still we don't have a solution to the epidemic pandemic we have today. And we have 4 lockdowns. At the end of every lockdown, what has happened? The economists were predicting a further downgrading of the growth. As of today I think CRISIL released its report about an hour ago on the Indian economy. They said that it will be -5. IMF, when they started in the initial, they said we will grow at 1.9%, even higher than China. So the last 4 lockdowns, what has happened? Not only for India, across the world, they expect that now the expectation is that the world economy will decline by 10%. Now, according to CRISIL's report today, the permanent GDP loss of India will be 10%. That is what they are predicting, permanent. So this is a phenomenon across the world. Who are the losers? Everybody is a loser, an individual, a corporate, even the government. As we are all aware, in any economy, the maximum spender as a customer segment is the government. So as we all know, already our government said central government will borrow 12.5 lakh crores this year. Usually they used to have a borrowing program of 7 lakh crores. Today, about an hour and a half back, I attended a webinar by India Ratings on state finances, where they are predicting in the best case scenario, the states will borrow 8 lakh crores. Best case. If it is 5% of GDP, it is allowed according to all our fiscal this thing. They can go up to 5% of GDP, they can borrow. So they can borrow another 11 lakh crores, which means this year alone, state governments and central governments in India, they need to borrow 24 lakh crores. It's a very, very high number by any imagination. But recognizing this need, especially after the 2008 crisis, countries across the world, when 2008 crisis happened, what happened was most of the financial institutions in the Europe and developed countries, they are very weak. Whereas in India, when the 2008 crisis happened, we are very, very strong. In fact, India continued to grow well till 2011. We are not affected much by the global crisis. We put a little bit of stimulus. It worked well for us. So till 2011, India continued to grow. But this time, even before COVID crisis, we saw GDP declining quarter by quarter for 6-7 quarters. In fact, even before COVID crisis, we are talking about a GDP growth of only 4.5%. In fact, many of the industries in India, they lost their competitiveness in the last 3 years for various reasons, either due to hyper competition or due to the new regulations which have come, or due to mainly due to reducing consumer demand. That is one of the major reasons for reduction. And if you look at the sequence, why our economic growth started going down, it all started with our central bank advising our banks that by 2017, all the Indian banks should report their total NPAs in their system by March 2017. So when the banks reported the 10% NPA and another restructured assets to be another 8% of NPA, the bank's credit rating came down, their borrowing costs went up, and banks stopped lending. That is where the start of decline of economic growth. Then we had a demonetization, we had GST, and various other regulations, including insolvency. So all these have brought down our, and apart from that, as I told you, hyper competition, there is a falling consumer demand. In top of this, COVID came. Now we know in the first month, April, many of the manufacturing companies were operating at only 10% capacity. If you look at automobile, it's almost 0% capacity utilization. And Indian economy, if you look at 55% of GDP comes from services. Services are the ones where people have to be in touch with customers directly. It includes tourism, accommodation, travel, you name. So all the services activities, the PMI of services came down substantially for the month of April. I think it was around 23 or 24% only. And manufacturing also came down substantially. And now, since we announced more lockdowns, actually what has happened? The level of economic activity is down substantially. In fact, the forecast for the first quarter of this year for our GDP is minus 25% by most of the analysts in India and abroad. So the first quarter we will have a reduction GDP of 25%, and for the whole year, including RBI, they are predicting minus, and the prediction is that it could be anywhere between -5 to -10. But one good thing is that next year, most of them are predicting India will grow between 15 to 25%. So it's a good thing. So people are expecting that next year, because we are losing all this momentum and all that has to catch up. So next year the momentum will pick up. And I was just attending a webinar today of CRISIL on auto components. So predictions which they are making for auto industry is also very bad. But only thing is that in auto industry, more than 85% costs are variable costs. So to that extent, the burden on automobile industry and auto component industry will be much less compared to the industries where the fixed cost will be 50-60% of the total cost of production. So going forward, what is that? Government has already recognized all these issues. So they brought a stimulus and they have mentioned about 20.5 lakh crores. But all the analysts have calculated and they said that now it is not actually 10% of GDP. The money which goes out from RBI or from government will be only 1.2% of GDP. So now what is that next government will do? My guess is that maybe government is waiting and watching what is happening in the economy. So they don't want to use all the ammunition at one go. So they are not announced measures for industry by industry. And we have heard that both finance minister and RBI governor saying that they are closely watching all the sectors and what is happening to sectors. Their experts are closely monitoring the sectors. So I'm sure within 10 days or 15 days, our government will come up with specific measures for industries which are affected in a big way, like airlines. You know, yesterday German government decided to pump in $9.5 billion into Lufthansa. Lufthansa was a company which was privatized some time ago. Now, after the induction of $9.7 billion by German government, this will again become a government company. So I expect that the government within a week, 10 days or 15 days, they'll come up with specific measures to address specific industries like airlines, tourism, accommodation, automobile, manufacturing, all this. So one of the things which also need to be addressed is now that we announced lockdowns, we have a lot of migrant labor within India, and 3 or 4 states contribute to migrant labor in manufacturing industries across India. So now they have said that they can go back to the states. Most of them have gone back. One of the major issues will be how companies will be able to operate or ramp up their capacity with less labor. If you ask me, this is one of the good opportunities for companies to move up in the value chain in terms of improving their efficiency, improving their manpower productivity, and their overall productivity. So these are my initial observations. After that, if any queries come, I'll take.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you, Kannan. Of course, about migrant labor, we were coming the second half. So, because that's a very, in its own way, a complex topic. Now, let me go to our friend Sai. Sai is a person who is on the ground person. Okay, sitting in India, sitting in Singapore, he arranges funds here, funds there, and most of his numbers puzzled me because everything is in billions of dollars and actually done. Actually, because many talk of done, he actually does it. And he has been on the board of many good companies. And with now going into those details, now he is also more involved in South Asian market, Thailand, Cambodia, Singapore, of course, India. So, Sai, maybe you could give, and maybe you could say in what way things will grow up, things can grow up, and then how is it that the economy, we all are aware that things are bad. Okay, today that's why we use the word title devastation. Devastation was a very powerful word, but when something is devastated, it is devastated. We are gone into a ditch. There's nothing to justify, non-justify. We may agree, we may not agree. Here is an invisible thing which none of us know has pushed us into the. It is just like a small scorpion, and we are all puzzled as if some one dinosaur battalion has come and hit all of us. But numbers show that it is a scorpion. Yes, scorpion is also a deadly creature. Nothing to belittle it. So, Sai, maybe from your point of view, India, Southeast Asia, or anybody else, of course, you're free enough to say. Sai.
Thank you. So I'm audible?
Yeah, fully.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your kind introduction. And in fact, the way in which this has been summed up, it is looking very scary. As far as the entire episode which has been summed up right now, which goes purely based on the recession which is already started in the world because of the like some sort of recession has been set in 2019 itself due to the US-China war, trade war. And then from there, this pandemic has took effect, and then it has given a much more shape to it. And then we are in that kind of 20 trillion economical impact across the globe. So that is what the like very scary thing which is going on for this year of 2020. Particularly the pace of Asia's growth is likely to reach historic low, which is already evident. And World Economic Outlook is expected to grow in a very very like declining way, the sense like it is almost like 5.5 to 1% has been projected in this kind of Southeast Asian countries. And meanwhile the global growth will be around negative 1% to 0.5% in 2020. So these are all the factors which couples all this like information shared already by Mr. Kannan and Mr. Suneet. So, in fact, today, a couple of days back, MAS, that is Monetary Authority of Singapore, has confirmed that it is entering into recession during this 2020. So that's where the kind of Singapore economy, one of the economy which is already glowing, and try to safeguard a lot of trade deals, but still they are into the recession from now on. So ADB outlook and IMF outlook, which projects the negative 0.5 to negative 5% during this current year, but they are giving a kind of upward movement in the 2021 from anywhere around 7 to 8% positive. So that is what the one of the thumping factor, which has already been shared by Mr. Kannan. So it is goes on very well with that kind of like momentum is going to picked up in 2021. But what's the question is going to happen in the 2020? So this is what the major answer to be made across the globe, which is a key factor for all of us to get addressed to it. And basically, this challenging factor, what we are looking at is that in this environment where vaccine yet to be found and the economy is still reeling, so where we are not able to put anything. In fact, Singapore has appointed a future committee, which is headed by Piyush Gupta of DBS, as well as the like Mr. Varghese of Volam Group also. So they have started making it from the last week, and then they given a one COVID-19 separate act to even like make this workable. We are looking at the resilience and efficiency to be the order of the day, which is actually
issue हो गया सर, little technical issue. That can you hear me?
Hello.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Little technical issue basically because because this account we started from another system.
Okay.
And that account they transferred me the hosting, but somehow this thing didn't come to my system. Otherwise, my system is unlimited.
I know.
Yes. is for 40 minutes. So that's why this. So you can start from here. I think.
But others have to join, no? They're not done.
Like they're joining.
Yeah, I got the message, immediately joined.
Yeah. Yeah, Sai. So Sai can start from here.
Sai has come?
He has come. So he can start it from here.
Okay.
And just go.
Yeah, Sai? I think there was some technical issue according to him. Yes.
Mr. Kannan is also here. Okay. So now you can start the discussion from here.
Sai, you can hear?
His audio is connecting.
Yeah. Now connected.
No. His audio, Sai's audio is not connected. Can you speak?
Hello.
Mr. Sai,
you can hear?
Yeah, we can hear. Please go ahead.
No, Sai, I cannot hear.
He's connected now. I think he is not able to hear.
Yeah, his audio has to be reconnected again.
Yeah. Please connect the audio. Mr. Sai.
No, connecting to audio. Yeah.
Now it is connected.
Hello, you can hear, Sai?
Yeah, very much.
Yeah. I think there are some technical hits. These are all called Murphy's Law. Long time, wrong things go wrong.
My God.
Please start from where you left.
Sai, you can.
Sure. Sorry. Thank you. The rise of the kind of challenges what we are looking forward is that which has been addressed in a different way for many countries right now. We are looking at the distance in back. Basically, the death of distance has happened in mid of 1990 because of telecom revolution, and everybody got connected into this world till this pandemic, and then now again the distance started. So these are all one of the challenges which entire world is facing towards this economical resilience. So how this is going to be taken forward and how this is going to be moved forward. These are all things which is going on a kind of general note. Every a government expect more intervention in the economy. So there is a kind of more of scrutiny on the businesses. The free flow of the capital will be having some sort of questionable now between the countries, and the Southeast Asia also having a major setback on this. They are looking at that how things going to be happening between the kind of China and the US, which is going on a Cold War kind of things because of the trade war, now the pandemic which has been created by China. So all these things are going on. In these circumstances, how the leading is going to be taken from the Southeast Asia by way of China, more aligning with China or more aligning with US, or the combination of both. These are all things which is going to be major question mark in the current scenario from 2020 to 2021. Now we are good leaping forward because both India and Southeast Asia are more depending on the two major economies for both imports and exports, and many of the kind of dealings which they have to be concentrated comparing to Europe. So that's where the major challenges what Southeast Asia is facing now. And in fact, some of the other factors like inequality is still growing, and millions of jobs disappearing. Traditional face-to-face encounter seems less necessary now, and supply chain is going to be more of closer to home. So these are all the kind of challenges what we are seeing that. To address this actually economic devastation that this pandemic causing in all regions, basically we need to apply more approach towards the climate changes and its environmental impacts. All these things which has been sidelined because of the growth which has happened in the last so many years. In fact, some of the countries like walked away from the climate change contribution and things like that. Now all are going to be focused on that. So IMF's broader role and issuance of special drawing rights to many member countries is going to be happening now. So that's where the there is a kind of talk is going on, and they will be coming out with a kind of drawing rights, special drawing rights for many countries, which will also ease out the plenty of the present elevating issues, debt elevations and interest elevation. Everything is happening, which will give us some sort of positive outlook, but still it is in the kind of pipeline which is to be coordinated, and with the kind of central banks infuse liquidity into the emerging economies has to happen through this system. So that these are all things which is we are looking at from the Southeast Asian market, particularly for the many of the countries, including India. So, and the UN's role with the multi-partner trust funds creation also is happening right now to support the low and middle income countries to enable recover from their socio-economic shock. So these are all the kind of international movements which is gathering right now, and this can be kind of like strengthening our entire process of like addressing this current fiasco. So this is my like initial gatherings, and then we'll go into the kind of further moments on that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sai. Now, for about 3 to 5 minutes, I'll be a speaker because when such a pandemic thing happens, and the way it is happening, it is almost like in 2 centuries maybe there's something unique which is happening. Yes, there was a Spanish flu and others which were of different magnitude. But at that time, there was no media of this type of presence and no information gathering and the way fear is being spread. So we need a different logic for something different to happen. Now, if we say money is there and not there. If every state is in debt, India is in the triple debt. India's, if you see our budget and speech, everything, we are already in 60 lakh crore minus. And every state starting from Maharashtra is 4.5 lakh crores debt. And these are all can continue, of course, because these are all things taken from basically from the people. What I am going to spend next few minutes is from where will the money come from? As you all know, I work on a doctrine called secured governance. Here it takes advantage of the hidden potential through which the money can come. Okay. So there's no borrowing, nothing which is there. Valuation. The moment I have to do something, there's a huge value created, and that valued and that comes back in the system. I mean, trying to put in one single sentence. So what I have proposed in the last 2 weeks is that India has got huge amount of wasteland. Okay. India 17%, that is almost 6 lakh square kilometers of wasteland is there in India. I'm saying 5%, and this is spread throughout India. There's nothing unique in any particular. Even inside Bombay, we got wasteland. Inside Delhi, we got wasteland. And inside Jammu and Kashmir also, we got wasteland. Okay. So that being the case, and that too in various sizes. And wasteland is something which generally belongs to government, and which nobody wants to touch. And we all find some fenced area when you go between places. There's all wasteland. What is my submission is take 5% of it and make a 100-year growth plan, because even 5% is 25,000 square kilometers we have got. So this type of a system would give the type of flexibility, the funding, and also make agreements with foreign funding entities which are valid, independent of the type of government which is that. That's the only thing which said, that's why the word secured government. Government should make a commitment which should be independent of who is ruling. Then what happens? There are people who are ready to fund. And like our friends said, many of the internal, processes like roads, Ganga Kaveri link, and everything has to be taken. Apply all the rules of COVID, whether we believe it or no, of people not touching each other, all those things. Because these are remote areas, lot of spread is there. Inside Bombay, inside a train, if you say spread should be there, train will go in loss. Inside the flight will go in loss, which all should be, activated in a different way, which we'll talk separately. Whereas this development can take. So migrant labor can fit into their own states. After all, they go on, what they will do? They will suffer for next 3 months, and then they'll rush back to the same place where they hated and they left because of the way the people had to pass. So this wasteland is something which I thought everybody should consider, because that it will create satellite cities. It will take advantage of the fact that there is something which will be growing and something which is available free, which with time will start going in a different dimension. So with a small brief, I'll go back to our friend Suneet, but the same question to all. I'll combine the last 2 questions together. That means now let us see from the point of view of human and point of view of the financials. That means human being has to get the financial, has to get the input which are required. So how would both combine, and how can we take things slowly, quickly, or lately back into the system? Suneet ji?
Thank you, Sai. Thank you. 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 Thank
Yes.
Muted. Yeah. So
Okay.
your wasteland development idea is an interesting way of finding land, which otherwise becomes scarce. But the key issue in this requires private sector, besides the fact that it requires funding, and I'm sure we can get funding from various international agencies if there's a package that is presented. There is one element which is as a prerequisite to this, which will make it easier. If you see that in most of the PPPs in India and around everywhere, whether they were central government or state government, there has been, and even today in many of them, there is some dispute or there is some difference of opinion, some niggling issue in it, why it is not working very smoothly. And PPP means public private partnership. Unfortunately, most of the PPP are focused as if they are a works contract, like a PWD contract. That last word, partnership, is not there. So I think the one action that the government will need to demonstrate is that they're willing to sort out the confusion on this past track record of some misgivings, some disputes, etc. In fact, there was a act that was being proposed to work on this grievance kind of a reconciliation system, but that thing has not got off. And I feel that while your idea is great and it actually doesn't need us to find some fresh money except maybe some multilateral funding as a project funding initially, and that there will be a lot of money, and if this is true that a lot of foreign corporates may want to shift their facilities to India, I suppose there is a good opportunity. But in all of these things, I think speed is the most important thing. I remember KV Kamath used to talk about, if something can't be done in 90 days, then forget it. So in all of these kind of things, I believe that, we should set a program. If we can't lay out what it is in 90 days, then we are never going to be able to do it. It will keep dragging, and we don't have the luxury of time if we have to revive the economy. I don't know whether I have covered all the things that you wanted to.
No, but on the HR and how to take care of the human aspect now that with so much of migrant labor, India, abroad, there's also something which we have to address. What is it that you take and how to?
See, I think the migrant labor, now we have woken up to the issue. I think we missed it initially. Still, there is a lot to be done, but going forward, I only worry about these tendencies, etc., which are coming up, where states are becoming like nations, are behaving like nations. I will allow railways to come to my state or not. I will allow aircraft to land or not. And if people have to go and work in other state, they have to register with me. And the state government has to make a request. These are actually constitutionally illegal, and I think are going to change the very fabric of our center-state relationship. So personally, I think these are all kind of red flags that we need to sort out. So but I think the migrant labor problem is going to come down. The issue that will happen is when so many people have gone back to their own places, I reckon that 10% will not come back. So there will be a manpower shortage. I expect a wage pressure to happen because organizations will have to pay more in order to be able to retain, etc., etc. So there will be some cost push in many of these things. But I think give or take 6 months, once the COVID, let's talk of Bombay. You may be able to open up whole lot of parts of India, but how do you do social distancing on local trains? And local trains carry 60% of or 65% of our working class. Delhi also, it is DTC buses and metros. So the very large metros have this unique problem of how do we actually make this work, and we haven't started applying our mind to how we will solve it. We are today still working on the control situation of saying, how do I control the number of disease? How do I control people movement and all of that? But we are still not able, we are not yet focusing on that. So from our point of view, I think we know the solutions are there, but the solutions require certain prerequisites. And I think the central government now has to come down with a heavy hand. The National Disaster Management gives them all the right to actually enforce their will over the state. And if you read the constitution, it says when there is a overlap and there is a difference between the state and the center prevails. So I think we should. So one part of it is migrant, but we also need to probably at the national level. I mean, Yogi Adityanath has sort of flagged that issue. We need to create some kind of shall we say, an insurance mechanism, because this COVID or a COVID kind of disease can happen soon. And also, I think this virus is not going to go away suddenly till we don't have a medical treatment or a vaccine. I think this is here to stay. I mean, everybody, all such illnesses have indicated that there is a W factor. It goes down, then it goes up again. So people are expecting a second recurrence. What are we going to do at that time? So unless we get into practices and realign our economy from that point of view, saying, okay, if there is a second recurrence, how do we adjust? For example, if you want to now reduce the pressure on these local trains for people who will work from home, then we have to think of how can we reduce the travel. Maybe every office develops a satellite office somewhere in other parts of Bombay where most of their people are there. So there is a lot of work to be done from the administrative side on this, because money, I think, can be found and can be created. Once people start spending money after some Keynesian expenditure happens, it will happen. And frankly, if you look at the current government plan that has come in, the real cash outgo out of the budget is less than 2%. Because that 3 lakh crore for MSME is a guarantee fund. Now, the guarantee fund means how much is the probability of default likely to happen. Based on SBI's track record, out of 3 lakh crores, 60,000 crores will devolve at the worst case scenario, which means it will be over 4 years. So every year, 15,000 crores. Now, that's not too much of an amount if we actually think. So government has kept some money probably somewhere up their sleeve to launch for these Keynesian programs. They need to launch these Keynesian programs, the construction, etc. And unfortunately, all these migrants were construction workers. Most of them are in construction. So once we figure the administrative solution out of this, in Singapore, for example, all the domestics, I'm sure, Sai will tell you, all the domestics and a lot of workers are actually, the Singapore government plays a role. They have licensed people who actually source it. Now we need to create some mechanism so that these migrant laborers who come in now, up till now, we didn't have a record. We didn't know where they exist and things like that. We have been surprised by where they exist and where they live. So we need to keep that track record, and we need to ensure that there is a institutional and administrative solution that is coming out. So I think my worry is that we have still in control situation, and we have not started thinking of the administrative mechanisms that will facilitate deregulation or relaxation of these lockdown procedures.
Okay. Kannanji, on human aspect and the actual finance aspect. Again, your sound is not.
Oh, now you can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear.
So this migrant labor, even before this COVID happened, like it was discussed earlier, all the state governments are competing with each other today. So most of the chief ministers who are promoting their invest in their own state program, they were saying that they wanted more labor to come from their own state. So they started saying 25% of minimum workforce should be from my state, 50% from my state. As I was saying, most of these workers were from only 4 5 states who are going to other parts of the country. So now that they have gone back to these states actually they are in the phase of development. They require these type of skills to develop their own state. So it's a blessing in disguise for these states to promote those industries in their states. That is one. Second is it's also the wish of each state chief to see that one of the major problems in Indian economy is employment. As you are all aware, every year about 1.25 crore people who are coming out who requires employment. So the challenge for India is to create employment of 1.25 crore people every year. So how they can be created? Which means that all the states have to advance in terms of economic growth. So what can happen is that again we have a skill development program where we talk about. In fact, I remember when the skill development program was being talked about, they are saying by 2022 they developed a strategy for 25 industries in India, and this 50 crore people will be skilled. But whatever statistics I was looking at in the last 2 3 years, we have skilled about 1.5 crore people. In fact, most of the major industries are tying up with the government to skill these people. They have collaboration with ITA and all that. So one of the ways of resolving this migrant issue is that most of states which require economic development now they got back this labor, so they can develop economic plan which can work well. And the states where they are working, if you ask me, whenever before a crisis, if you have gone to any plant, you would always see that the plant efficiency is only 60 70%. It's not 100%. So they always operate at a suboptimal efficiency level. So this is a very good opportunity for these companies to move up in the value chain in terms of the efficiency levels, and plus automation. They can increase automation level. So, so that can happen. But as of now, again, how we handle the migrant position before announcing this lockdown first time itself, we could have given 1 week for people to reach their place, but even government was not aware how long they were going to extend the lockdown. So it was all a guessing game, and government was forced to lock down for 4 times. The government thought maybe it will get over in a week, or two, three. So that's what they also must have thought, being for the first time. So migrant labor, if you ask me, there could be a long-term solution which is beneficial for all the states as well as for India. In terms of raising resources, why government has, even though they announced 10% GDP stimulus, whereas the money on the table is only 1.2%, the remaining 8.8 is left out for others to fund it. Even before the crisis, Indian banking system had 6 lakh crores for the last 1 year. It was going on increasing every month. The liquidity was very high in the system. Companies were not borrowing, as I said, that their capacity utilization was less than 70%. Companies will start borrowing for expansion only when the capacity utilization goes over 80%. So the money, as of I think last week, the banking system has got a liquidity of 8.6 lakh crores, which is available for lending. But they don't lend for two reasons. One is that companies don't go and ask for it. Second is that banks are not comfortable lending. They feel that they can do NPA. So that is where government is trying to push them. But these are not enough. So whatever measures the government has taken is good for 3 months and 6 months to address the people who are in the poverty, who are migrant labor, who are the 80 crore people who are covered under ration cards. This is good for 6 months. But if you have to revive the industries, then, as I said, the government has to give a lot of incentives to sectors as well as large companies. Why large companies? So each large company has got a big supply chain system where they have first tier supplier, second tier supplier, third tier supplier. So all these SMEs depend on the survival of the large companies. So the government makes sure that the large companies survive, they do well. Obviously, the small companies which are depending on these large companies will start doing well. So if you ask me, if you look at other countries like the US or Europe, there is a theory called modern monetary theory. What does the modern monetary theory says? As I said, even government does not have money to spend. One of the suggestions you made was that they have a land where they can invite people to come and invest. That is one part. And what the government can do is they can print money. That is the only thing. So now there is no why government is not printing money. We already feel that we will get downgraded. Our India's rating will get downgraded. But this is a better option than bringing the economic growth down to 5 or 10%. If you are able to achieve, if you ask me, if the government is able to print 15 lakh crores, let us say 14 lakh crores now, and they start pumping into airlines, yeah, travel, tourism, automobile, manufacturing, then government starts spending money. As I said, government is one of the major spenders in an economy. 30 lakh crore budget means it's a big amount. So they are the big spenders. So they can also spend that money. That will give a push to the demand. As of today, the problem is consumer demand. So the government should not worry about money printing now. They should go and print money and give it to industries which require the most. And we will see demand reviving in 3 to 4 months. That is what I feel. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, our friend Sai, you can, along with this, you can also talk in terms of, many industries are supposed to come from China, how Southeast Asian countries and India can play a role, plus this human problem and the finance problem.
Sure, sure. And in fact, I just want to share one of the interesting thing which has been, like when we are in the IMA Chennai chapter, we had some lot of discussion on that. The HUKOU, this is one of the system called household registration system to address the migratory labor in the many of the countries, because this system has been well versed in the Chinese administration, and then that is the reason that they were able to track, or they were able to do a kind of complete lockdown of a particular region, because the system is perfect in the kind of like this been practiced for several decades. And this system has got revamping to different versions, and 2006 or 2008 version has got further kind of regularized, and now still it is going up, but there are plus and minuses out there for the system what they are following up. But in spite of all these things, during this pandemic, that has worked out very well for one. This is called HUKOU. This is one of the biggest like migratory registration system, where from one province to another province, people moves. They will have registration, they will have approval, and they will move into it. So there is a kind of insurance scheme is added along with that. Apart from that, there is even for the kind of the kind of the economical stimulus also been given, and the healthcare system as well as the kind of other like government assistances, all are being gone along with this. So this is a system which is actually a very interesting system to study by all of the kind of future like development in India, for particularly addressing to the migratory people, because this where the entire hit has happened to the extent of such a huge population which has been happening in India. But as Mr. Suneet ji said, the Singapore has got a beautiful system of dormitory, like the kind of how they they corrected the entire system from the migratory people who has got spread this virus right now. They are very clear on that. So they can easily spot out where people are there and which, even though it is a city state, but they have a perfect control on the migration population. At the same time, they can clearly say that this is the population which has got affected from the our like citizens, and this is the population came from India, came from Bangladesh, came from Pakistan. Everything they can codify and then tell you where exactly they are locating. But all said and done, we can say that they are a small country, they can manage, but we need a system to be in a place. So that is where the HOKOU system, which in China, which always interesting to all of us, say that how the migratory, like population changes between the two different parts of a particular country, like vast country like India and China, it's been addressed. So that's where I just wanted to have one aspect which I want to cover it up here. And very, very interesting system where if at all we want to implement it, definitely we can do that because we have a ration system already in place and the other is there. So that we got to, like make an integration to that. And then this is the way where India can have much more, like allocation of resources properly to address to the lowest set of the economy. So that's a thing which I want to share it here in this forum. And apart from that, actually, on the financial side, we have plenty of funds across the Europe and like in Middle Eastern countries. Apart from the Indian system, where the liquidity is much more, as Mr. Kannan said that more than 8.5 lakh crore is available, and like according to even in Europe and Middle East put together, billions of dollars available for funding, but we are not able to get it to the kind of like kind of availing these facilities. And we are also handling a lot of MTN facilities from Europe, actually placement of MTN medium term notes. In this scenario, we are also looking for some PDS system from Indonesia for raising around 3 billion. And economical development Vietnam. Vietnam is one of the country which has been given by the World Bank even now that they will have a positive even 2020. That is what one of the exception they given from the World Bank projection. But all said and done, like this funding is available across the globe to access that, and we need to have the plans in place. So that's where we are all coming with the secure governance system where we can address plenty, because we as a country, number two in the like Asia and number three in the world as far as the GDP PPP model is concerned, purchase parity price. So definitely we can lead the role apart from China, because China has got some sort of distrust right now between the entire nations, in the sense like even Southeast Asian countries also, some of the people are not trusting them because of the present pandemic situation as well as the trade war. So even Singapore, for that matter, in spite of their instruction to allow people from China to move around, they completely cut off the entire, like inward movements during this February, March. So even in that time, even Cambodia has given the strength to China, saying that we'll support you. But Singapore, as when Vietnam said, we cannot make any entry from China to their region. So these are all things happening, and the US trying its best to get into this fold of Southeast Asia, because for them actually the major supply chain is coming from these regions. So these are all the factors which is going to add value to us to concentrate if we have a proper plans. The proper planning in the sense like the government which has got already proactive, but we need to do much more fine tuning into the bottom level and then find out that how the planning can be implemented. As Suneet said, within 90 days, if the plan is not moving, then it is not worthwhile. So somebody has to take some sort of responsibility to take these initiatives forward, like for example, hub development or cluster development or the kind of satellite cities or the global smart cities. All these things has to be implemented. We are keeps on speaking for the past like 5 or plus years, but we need to find out that how the implementation can happen. So we need to have the forum for that and then take this forward so that we can definitely beat the present crisis. And then 2021 is always there for us to leap forward, but we need to make our step forward in a right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we are slightly running out of time.
Yeah.
So if somebody has nothing specific, I'll just conclude. The takeaway. Yeah, I think Suneet wants to say something. Please.
Just one point. In 2008, on this, there is a very landmark judgment in the March of 2008, which was given by Supreme Court, which said that every Indian has the right to settle down and work anywhere. And I think our politicians and political system needs to revisit it and understand that India is a union of states. It's not a confederation of states. Okay, we are not federal structure. We are quasi-federal structure, and therefore states can't come up with a rule that starts impinging on flexibilities that were given up till now. Just that point.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me just conclude our see. Let us know that there's something very, very bad which has happened, devastating, the word we have used. At the same time, from whatever we talk and whatever actions has to be taken, what like Mr. Suneet said, that the government, whatever it used to private sector, public sector, large company, they should clear it in the next, maybe as quickly as possible, 30 days, 45 days. It should not be more than 45 days. Then large projects has to be induced, like our friend Kannan said, taking advantage of the nitty-gritties which are harming our interests. Small thing by which things don't go forward. Funds are there. Like Sai says, funds are there as much as we want, more than what we want. And like whatever little I told about this wasteland and others, that is a bank available. Even if I put 2,000 rupees per square foot of the land spread over this thing, that comes to 600 lakh crores. That type of money is there. Spread over 100 years, take that land, develop it. Employment will be there. Commitment will be there. And need of the hour is quick action. It cannot be that, we just simply saying Chalta hai Raj cannot work, because this is hit us and where it hurts more. This every migrant, even all of us are migrants in a different structure. I don't think we belong to whatever we call as our home state. I don't know what is my own home state. So all of us are a different type of migrant labor. And we are there whatever we are. And India is one country where anybody can be anywhere. Okay. And many of the states, we know the CMs don't belong to the state at all, and still they are successful CMs. So India is that way a broad country. And there are narrowness which comes, like our Suneet has pointed out. Those things, how much of it is political statement without maturity and how much of it we do not know. But that should not come in the way of development. Development has to be independent of any immature statements made by this. Because labor of various facets will come. At the same time, concluding it, all the labor were gone there, those type of industries should come there. Okay, then also people are happy. The different industries will come. And last concluding remark is that we have to now concentrate on employing people, whatever we do. No more are the days where we say how much less you pay, so much money you get. Even the banks and everybody should say how much are you bidding. Other people will get lynched. Okay, like I said, we are also migrants, but we are reasonably successful migrants. But majority are not so successful migrants. So before they come and revolt, we have to ensure that people are employed. And now Chinese, because of whatever way they have done, companies want to come to India. They have to be taken with their own requirements. And this land is available. People are there. People with all sorts of experiences are there. And it is for all of us to put these things together and take India into a different dimension. I think with that, I will thank everybody. And then we will call it our closing of the summit. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.